Hello, everybody. Um, I am here today with Lara Brunstrom, and she owns Sterling Fire Coaching, and she helps families plan or determine if divorce is the right thing for them or to make divorce an easier situation. I will stop trying to tell what she does, and we will let Lara share with us what she does. So, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And let us know what is your focus? Who do you help and how do you help families?
So I work with individuals either like I always tell people that the minute divorce pops into your head, find a coach, start thinking, start planning, get your team together. I do work with people who end up not getting divorced. I also work with people who are going through the divorce process and on the tail end side of divorce. So kind of the recovery part of that. So it's really, there's three phases. There's before, during, and after. And I coach people all the way through those phases.
All right. And prior to meeting you, I had never heard of this type of coaching, but it sounds amazing because in my experience working with students who have dyslexia, I find that the ones whose families have gone through rough divorces, the kids are have a lot more emotional issues than the families who have very um, positive divorces
Yes.
or better relationships, or families who are not divorced at all. And I forgot to mention what dyslexia is. So let me just talk about that a little bit in case people are wondering and don't know what dyslexia is. Dyslexia is a learning difference that people of all ages experience. And we work with students from age 7 to 77 because even older people still want to learn how to read. And people with dyslexia often have difficulty with reading, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's just spelling that they have difficulty with. And we also work with people who have trouble with math and writing, and very often their self-esteem is tarnished because they've struggled so much in school. So that's a challenge that they're dealing with. And then when families are going through divorce, that becomes an added challenge. And you have experience as a special ed teacher in your past life, right? So
I do.
you can relate to the struggles of our students, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely. And what I love about something you said is that you deal with all ages of people. There's always, I love the idea that there's an unlimited time where you can address things. You can be 77 and still want to tackle this and understand and conquer it better and understand it better and learn coping mechanisms to deal with it, which is amazing. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, well, thank you. And so tell us a little bit more about how you would help a family and how you make a difference in their lives.
So divorce coaching was new to me also. I am a huge champion of using a divorce coach. I personally went through a divorce without any team whatsoever. And having somebody walk alongside me in the process would have been amazing. So what happens is how an individual shows up to a process in divorce or to their family events or for their kids really makes a difference. So kids are sponges, right? They're absorbing everything you do. They watch all your moves. They pick up on the vibes you're setting off. If you're angry, I don't know if you've ever noticed this if you have kids, but when you have a really agitated morning, your kids tend to like follow that with the rest of their day. It wears off on them. So how parents are showing up for their kids is huge. Their mindset, their attitude, how they're dealing and coping with their soon to be ex-spouse or their ex-spouse, or just their problems in their relationship that they haven't really grasped, like, do I want to stay in this or not? So what's making a difference for the kids is how the parents are responding to their circumstances. So what I do is I help them through that. I help people if they're in the process of deciding they want a divorce. We're asking questions. I'm asking questions to them, digging deeper into, do you want to stay? Do you want to go? What does going look like? What does staying look like? If you're in the process of divorce, it's a life altering thing. I mean, it's rough. It's probably in the top 10 stressors that you can have going through life. So it's one of them that's going to impact you emotionally. Paying attention to how you're making decisions. Is your focus too narrow? Are you getting frustrated? Do you want to throw in the towel? I help people pace those decisions if they're going into mediation. We prep them for mediation. What questions should you ask? What self-monitoring should you do? If you need a break, what are you going to bring into that room to remind you that you need a break? What does your focus need to be? And really bringing it down to the basics of, what are your values? What do you want to represent to your kids? What do you want to represent to your spouse? How do you want to show up? If you have a set of values, how are you honoring them going through the process?
And how do people usually respond to your advice?
And to my what?
To your advice, to your guidance.
So it's not, and that's really an interesting part about coaching, is it's not advice. Like, coaching is very much, the assumption is you have all the answers. It's just me asking the right questions to get those answers out of you. So it is asking you, what are your values? And if you say family is a really strong value for me, then we dig deeper into what does that value look like for you? How are you going to show up in the process of honoring that value? So it's me asking questions and you providing how you want to do that. What does that mean to you? What does it mean for you to show up more calm? What does it mean for you to not lose your cool during this process? I'm really mining for that information that's all inside of you. It's just really hard to see yourself. And that's where a coach kind of comes in and just really digs into asking super powerful questions, having you drive the boat where I can kind of steer you a little bit, but you're in control. So their response is usually amazing. I actually just had a client yesterday say to me, I went into this conversation with my spouse. I brought all my arsenal. I brought all my stories. And he said, I didn't use any of it. I approached the conversation the way you educated me to. I practiced it a little bit in my head. And when I went there, and he just paused, and I was like, I just waited for him to answer. And he goes, it was unreal. Like, he just was shocked how the new technique to communicate with her worked. So a lot of it's, you're in a position of wanting a divorce probably because you don't have great communication skills. So some of it is just a little bit of practice and a little bit of self-reflection on how again, you show up, how you want to communicate, what questions you want to ask in a calm way, honoring that person, still treating them as somebody who's still important to you. If they have children, if you have children together, they're going to be in your life. Right. So you want to make the best of it.
Yeah. And as a child of divorce, I felt like my father wasn't always so nice to my mother, and that put a wedge between my father and myself. So it didn't, it's important to keep face for your kids too, by being kinder to your soon to be ex-spouse.
Absolutely. And kids are very protective of their parents. Mm-hmm. They may tend to go more protective to one. However, they love their parents. They want their parents to be there for them. They want their parents to not get hurt.
And I guess the underdog, in the situation is, because I was closer to my father until the divorce came, and then it switched, probably because my mother became the underdog. So
yeah, Yeah, the chemistry of how it works is, I mean, that's crystal ball. But they truly do experience everything you're putting out there. You know, that's how they're learning. They're learning through watching you. You can say all you want to kids sometimes, but the behavior you exhibit, that's the one they're going to emulate.
Do you have any suggestions for parents of how to help their kids along with a divorce situation?
Let's see. They're pretty basic. I would say make sure you're, and this sounds kind of silly, but scheduling fun. Like make sure you're still consistently doing the things that you love to do together. A big part of coaching, and I would say also it travels into parenting, is normalizing how they feel. You know, none of us can feel like we are heard until we're acknowledged. So if your kids are hurting, acknowledge that they're hurting and they're going through something that is rough, and keep the doors open to communicate with them. Listen. I've seen a lot. My son is older. I've seen parents as their kids get into their teenage years that are like, come talk to me about anything. And then the kids open up and talk to them and then they get pissed. And you're like, that's not effective. You need to take a deep breath when they tell you something you don't like. You know, manage how you respond to them, but keep the fun factor going, keep the communication going, acknowledge their pain, make sure they know that they're being seen, listen empathetically to them, and show up for them consistently.
Awesome. That's great advice. And what sort of training do you have, or background? What led you to this type of a career?
So my training is kind of meanders a little bit, because I'm going to go back a little bit more in time since it applies here. Is my master's degree is in special education. My passion is teaching, coaching, educating people. So it's been a common thread throughout my life. When I stopped teaching, I raised my son, who's now 21. And when I decided to go into coaching was after I went through a horrible divorce that took forever. And part of refinding my feet was exposure to coaching first and foremost. And then I was like, this is amazing. Coaching is very focused, like now forward. So it's not digging into your past. It's what am I doing now? It's kind of a 10 seconds from now, 10 days from now, 10 years from now. What do I want that path to look like? The exposure to that was just mind blowing. It was absolutely life-changing for me. And I loved it so much that I'm like, I'm going to look into this. So I went to coaching school and got certified in that, and then coached for a while, kind of basic life coaching. People who are stuck, people who want to create change, people who are not sure what direction they want to go, people struggling with relationships or job placement or whatever. People come to coaching for all different kinds of reasons. And I was one of those people who spent about 6 years, if I went out to social events and people going through wanted to talk to me about it, I was like, nope, not your girl. Nope, 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 not listening. Don't want to hear it. Until I woke up one day and I was like, I not only want to talk about it, I want to help people go through it. It is hard to go through alone. I love walking alongside somebody, empowering them, making sure they're showing up for themselves, making sure they're showing up for their kids, making sure they're showing up for their future. It is a hard process for people to go through. It is absolutely my passion to walk them through it. So that's kind of how I ended up here. And a little bit on divorce coaching that's really interesting is it's a little bit twofold. I coach the person and how they want to live into the next phase of their life, what they want to honor, what they want to be, what they're going to do with themselves, what they're going to do with their family, and also the process, because the process of going through divorce is rough. So it's a little bit like a little bit like juggling two balls at the same time. And it's synchronizing it together and weaving a fabric of a whole person and having them come out of the process ready to go into another relationship if that's what they choose, unbroken, not crushed by the process, but actually empowered and possibly better. If they chose to take a new path, it can absolutely be better the next time.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're going to do it again, why are you going to repeat the same?
Exactly. Because people do it. They go through a
Oh,
divorce and this is bad, 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 bad. And they make no changes. And guess what? They get married and they do the same thing.
yeah, I see that day in and day out with divorced people.
Yeah, absolutely.
They just continue the cycle with a different person, and now they have more baggage back there.
Exactly. So you just put your kids and yourself and your spouse through all of this just to repeat it.
Right. Yeah, that's probably the best thing that anyone can glean from getting a divorce, is if you're gonna, make the change so that you're happier in the situation.
Absolutely. And make it as smooth as possible. Just, it doesn't have to be horrible. I mean, there's quotes out there that say, divorce isn't made difficult by the law, it's made difficult by the personalities. And that is probably really, really true. So I also went to divorce coaching. I'm certified in that as well. So it's an actual specialty that exists. So I learn a lot about, not only do I have my personal experience with it, but that adds just the validation of understanding a lot of the documents and the process that it goes through. So.
Wow, that's amazing. So, do you offer services virtually, in person, a bit of both?
So I would say 90% of my coaching over the phone. People tend to like to walk and be active while they're talking to me. Getting coached is a process of movement. It's a mindset, it's movement, it's shaking things up, it's digging deep, looking into yourself. I have clients who will drive to the beach, just kind of sit and watch the waves as we talk, or clients who will hike, and I'll ask them a really hard, powerful question, and they're going up a hill and they're like, okay, I gotta pause. So I would say 90% is done on the phone, so I can coach anybody, anywhere. If people want to be on Zoom, they can be. I find people tend to look at themselves a lot, and that starts to like create a whole nother thing. But sometimes people want that visual cue, which is great. But yeah, I coach people all over the United States.
That's awesome. Awesome. And you have offered to donate a free coaching session to our listeners. So
I have.
that's going to be amazing for somebody who's already considering getting a divorce. Please don't go down the road of getting divorced just to get this prize. But tell us a little bit about what your donation includes.
So I'll tell you a little bit about my process also, because I think it's important. Coaching is personal, and styles, people click. I mean, I tend to attract, like I said, a client who is active and wants that like physical movement. Not all of them do that, but I'm a fairly high energy person. So that reflects just on who's attracted to me as a coach. So knowing that, when I have new potential clients, I always do a chemistry session with them. Just really think of it as like a meet and greet. We have a conversation. It's not necessarily all coaching. It's more just exploratory, having a conversation about where they are, what their sticky points are, and just to make sure we're a fit, because it's very personal. This is a place where you show up, that I don't enter the conversation in terms of what I think. This is 100% coaching is all about you. So it's very different than having like a cocktail conversation with somebody where says, I really like red wine. And you say, I do too. Coaching is somebody says, I really like red wine. And I say, what about red wine do you like? It's very different. So just getting that dance and feeling that chemistry between two people. So that I start, and that's usually an hour, and that's free. That's anybody who's thinking and considering of hiring me as a coach. That is always how we start. Then a first coaching session would be typically 45 minutes to 50 minutes. And that's client brings a topic and we dig in. So what I would do with the person who comes and gets the free session is we'll dive into coaching. So we'll probably make it a little bit longer of a session so we can just have some conversation on a little bit of background. The more sessions I do with people, obviously, the more I know them, they know me, and you get into a little bit of a flow. So I would say plan on like an hour to an hour and 15 minutes as opposed to like a normal coaching session. So we can have that educational factor too. So that's what they will have, whoever ends up with me. That's what we will do.
Well, that is such a generous donation. So thank you.
It's amazing. I think coaching for me, I know it was life-changing. I think it can be for everybody. I wish everybody had a coach. We all have sticky points. We all have times in our lives where we're like, holy crap, what do I do now? And it's, as I said, it is so different than going into a social setting. So coaching is very different than going out with friends. It's focused on you 100%. So it's a little bit of a dance. It's a little bit of you show up with a topic and we just figure out what clarity you would like to get out of that topic. And we dive in. Not the same as going out and having girlfriend support or bro fest and having conversations that way. I wish everybody had a coach. It's everybody has times in their lives where it's sticky and they need a non-judgmental, non-partial opinion. I have people say to me all the time at the end of a session, thank you for not judging me. Thank you for showing up and helping me figure this out. It's huge. It's really powerful, especially when people just at the end of a session, they're like, oh my gosh, it's so good. And it's why I love my job. And the goal is to not walk away with all the answers. The goal is to leave you thinking about it and creating solutions in between sessions. So much of coaching happens in between the sessions. So I look forward to whoever comes my way, whether it's free or for a chemistry session. I'm open to dancing that dance. It's an amazing experience. Divorce is hard. Raising kids is hard. It's always nice to have somebody on your side.
Awesome. And how can people get a hold of you?
So do you put things in the notes?
I can.
Honestly, my cell phone is the best way to get a hold of me.
Okay.
A text message is the fastest, but you can also, my website has an appointment scheduler in there. So you can click on that. You can send me an email through that. And I can either just give you my cell phone now, or you can put it I don't expect people to have a piece of paper to write stuff down, but
yeah, no, we can have my assistant add it to the video. So
that would be great. And that's texting, emailing, setting up an appointment that way is great.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking to us today.
Absolutely.
And hopefully you will be able to answer some questions for people afterwards, and we'll just keep the conversation going.
Perfect. And reach out to me anytime. I love what you do.
Thank you.